Hey there nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back with another episode of Commander Cheapskate Game Reviews, and this is a series that's dedicated to reviewing different products related to the miniatures wargaming hobby. And on today's episode, we will be taking another look at the 9th edition of Warhammer Fantasy rules published by the Warhammer Armies Project, created by Matthias Eliasson. And on today's episode, we are taking a look at the 9th edition rules for the Dogs of War for Warhammer Fantasy Battle. Now, for those of you guys who may be unaware of the Dogs of War were actually a throwback army from the earlier editions of Warhammer Fantasy. I think the last time they showed up, I think it was in the 6th edition of Warhammer Fantasy, I believe. I have to double check on that one. But just to give you guys a rundown of what they are, the Dogs of War, as you can see from this cover artwork that we see here, is actually an army that is a very myriad army in terms that they use different units from almost every single race in Warhammer and the old world. And basically these guys are all mercenary units. They kind of work together. They're from the nation of Miragliano, which is basically Renaissance era Italy during that time period as well. And so because that, it's made up of mercenaries and mercenary captains who sell their services to the higher bidder. So the nice thing about a Dogs of War army is that it's very, very diverse, the type of units you can field. At the same time, there are also different regiments called Regiments of Renown that you can hire as well, which are very specific, kind of like special character version of regiments and things. So they have that in this as well. So the nice thing about this one is that Matthias Eliasson has created rules for the Dogs of War in 9th edition Warhammer Fantasy. And at the same time, he's brought back a lot of old units and rules that were existing in earlier editions, and now we're bringing it to here. So because that, we will be doing a deep dive on this rulebook. We'll be going over the bestiary for the rulebook, as well as individual units, the special rules, magical items, as well as army lists. So because of that, this one will be a little bit more of a deeper dive. So because of that, I will put timestamps down below in the description so that way you can click and choose and navigate throughout the video as you see fit. So that being said, let's get this video review on a roll. Alright, so let's go ahead and get this started real fast. Let's go ahead over to the table of contents real quick. And as you can see, another creation by Matthias Eliasson. And once again, the artwork on this is absolutely fantastic, as well as the production value on this tome. Like I said before in many other of his reviews, that if you didn't know any better, you could have sworn this is actually a real Warhammer supplement created by Games Workshop during that time period. So as you can see, we have a whole laundry list of things we're going to be going over today. So we're not going to really spend too much time on the backstory. Just to let you guys know, these guys are from Tilia, is where they're located at. So for example, if you go here to the map, that kind of shows you where Tilia is located. Like I said before, it's pretty much Renaissance era Italy during that time period. Miragliano, which is basically the capital basically of this area, is where most of these guys come from. They live right next door to the Skaven, for example. So that way you can get an example of where they are geographically located at in the world. We're mainly going to be focusing, however, though, we'll be talking about things like the actual army rules, as well as the rules for all the individual units. We'll also take a look at their army list as well, and talk about some things that are available to us. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get you guys started. First of all, let's go and talk about the Army special rules real quick. So we have racial distress, and basically it says, most models belong to a certain race as detailed in their troop type. This includes human, dwarf, elf, halfling, ogre, orc, and hobgoblin. Models belonging to the same race follows the ally rules for bound by blood. Humans, dwarves, elves, and halflings treat each other as trusted allies. Ogres, giants, and hobgoblins are considered suspicious allies to all. Orcs are desperate allies to humans, dwarves, elves, and halflings, and however, all models may still use the Paymaster's Hold Your Ground ability as normal. And of course, now we have a new kind of table that's associated with these guys called the Mercenary Special Rule. It says, every time a unit with this special rule fails a break test, roll on the Mercenary Loyalty table below and apply the results. This rule has no effect on a unit that is joined by the Army's General, Paymaster, or Merchant Prince. So it looks like you have a Mercenary Loyalty table. On a 1 to 3, you get Wavering Loyalty. All models in this unit suffer a -1 modifier to their leadership for the rest of the battle. 4 through 5 is Soldier On, the unit flees as normal, and 6, Stand Fast, the unit counts as having passed its break test. Which kind of makes sense because, you know, mercenaries are not exactly the most reliable soldiers. Because mercenaries fight for primarily pay. They don't really fight for a cause or for a nation so much. They just basically fight for the highest bidder. So it kind of makes sense that they include this rule in here as well. Kind of adds some flavor to it, which is actually kind of cool in my opinion. So that part is really, really awesome. Now, continuing on, let's go and talk about some more. So now we have some of our unit choices in here. Now, a lot of these units, like I said before, are from older editions of Warhammer Fantasy. So it's kind of nice seeing these guys again. So one of the types you get is what's called a Merchant Prince. These guys have some pretty mediocre stats. 4 movement, 5 weapon skill, 4 ballistic skill, strength, toughness, 3 wounds, 4 initiative, 3 attacks, 9 leadership. Now the reason why you might want to take this guy is because of the special rule called the best money can buy. If a merchant prince is included in your army, one Dogs of War unit, which is not a regiment of renown, character, monster, or war machine, may increase armor save by 1 or gain armor piercing 1. This costs 1 point per model for infantry and 2 points per model for other troop types. Alternatively, the unit may take a magic standard worth 100 to 150 points. Now, a nice thing about the Merchant Prince is that the Merchant Prince actually gets kind of a bump in terms of the number of magical items they can attack, as well as special abilities that is unique to generals from Dogs of War armies, and that's the main reason why you take this person. They have lesser stats than, say, a mercenary general, but they have access to more magical items, as well as different skills and things, and that's another thing you want to take a look at when it comes to Merchant Prince. Plus, they have this best that money can buy special rule, which the mercenary general does not have. So let's go ahead and talk about that real quick. So mercenary general, as you can see here, like I said before, a little bit better than the prince, with 6 weapon skill, 5 ballistic skill, 4 strength and toughness, 3 wounds, 6 initiative, 4 attacks, 9 leadership. Then you have the captain, which is basically the hero version of this. So like I said before, better stats, but they don't have the best money can buy rule as well. So that's one of the things you gotta figure out real quick when you choose your general as well. Then we also have Hireling Wizards. Hireling Wizards are basically just like your normal wizards that you see in the Empire Army. The difference for them, though, is they have the Mercenary Special Rule, and then also they can take all 8 lores from the Warhammer rulebook, so these guys are pretty much the same that you're used to seeing. Now we have another character called an Assassin. These guys are very much like Ezio de Auditore de Firenze from the Assassin's Creed games. These guys have a movement of 4, 6 weapon skill, 6 ballistic skill, 4 strength and toughness, 2 wounds, 7 initiative, 3 attacks, 8 leadership. They have 5 up for dodge. They have the hidden special rule, mercenaries, as well as scouts. So these are like kind of like assassins like you'd see from Dark Elves. So that's one of the things that they have as well. Now, probably the most important character that you have in your army is a Paymaster, because every single Dogs of War army must have at least one. Now, the Paymaster, as the name suggests, is the guy that's responsible for taking care of all the economical aspects of the mercenary army. These guys make sure you get paid. So because of that, you must always have one in your army. So as you see here, we have a Paymaster, comes with movement 4, 4 weapon skill, ballistic skill, 4 strength and toughness, 2 wounds, 4 initiative, 2 attacks, 8 leadership, and they also come with 2 pay chest bodyguards as well. So it says here, for the Paymaster special rule, you must include one and only one Paymaster in the army. The Paymaster follows all the rules for Battle Standard Bearer. If the Paymaster is slain, all friendly units within 12 inches, or 18 if he is at pay chest, of the Paymaster suffer -1 to leadership for the remainder of the game. So this is probably the most important character that you want to protect inside of your army, because this guy is what makes sure all the mercenaries fight. If this person dies, you suffer some horrible penalties. And then of course we have the pay chest upgrade, which is an upgrade to this. It says the Paymaster may be accompanied by a pay chest guarded by 2 pay chest bodyguards, which increases his unit strength by 2. This can be represented by either modeling the Paymaster with the pay chest and guards on a single base, or as a separate model placed in base contact with the Paymaster at all times. It may be placed in the second rank of the unit if you wish. The pay chest increases the radius of the Paymaster's hold your ground special rule by 6 inches. So you always kind of want to take the pay chest upgrade just because it's an added benefit for your Battle Standard Bearer rules. At the same time, it comes with 2 bodyguards, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail when we actually get to some more of those guys as well. Now then, we also have some new additional units as well. We have a Moneylender. Moneylender has a movement of 4, 2 weapon skill and ballistic skill, 3 strength and toughness, 1 wound, 3 initiative, 1 attack, and 6 leadership. Now you might be wondering, why in the world would you take a Moneylender for? And it's because of this special rule here called Moneylender. It says the Moneylender must be placed in the base contact with the Paymaster, but may not otherwise be targeted separately from the unit. If the Paymaster is accompanied by a Moneylender, any unit using his Hold Your Ground ability adds +1 to their leadership, as the Moneylender promises more money and the troops cheer and return to the fray. Hopefully. So as you can see, that's the reason why you take this guy. You take this guy for that +1 leadership, because you're going to have mediocre leadership as a Dogs of War army. They're not like the Empire, where the Empire has a pretty reliable leadership source. I mean, these guys are sellswords, right? There's a reason why you don't really want to depend on mercenaries for your armies unless you have to. So that's where the Moneylender comes in. At the same time, you also what's called a Paymaster's Bodyguard, and traditionally speaking, you put a unit of Paymaster's Bodyguard in your army, and you put the Paymaster with it, and we'll talk about why that is the case real fast. So these are like your elite troop choices. They have movement 4, weapon skill 4, 3 ballistic skill, 4 strength, 3 toughness, 1 wound, 4 initiative, 1 attack, 8 leadership. And the reason why I want to take these guys is because of their bodyguard rule. It says the Paymaster must join this unit, and he may not leave it, and as long as the Paymaster is alive, the unit is stubborn. So really, really good combination. You take this, add a Moneylender as well as a Paymaster, and you have a pretty hard-hitting unit, especially with the way they're equipped. And we'll talk about that when we get to the army lists. Now we have the Pikeman, which is your bread and butter for your army. The Pikeman has a movement of 4, 3 weapon skill, 3 ballistic skill, 3 strength, 3 toughness, 1 wound. 3 initiative, 1 attack, 7 leadership. They can also get rid of sergeant. The reason why you take these guys is because they could fight into extra ranks up to 3 ranks deep. So pikemen are really good. Plus their pike weapon has some bonuses against cavalry, monsters, infantry, monsters, cavalry. So that's the reason why you take pikemen, because pikemen are really good that way as well, especially against those bigger units. And then of course you have crossbowmen. Crossbowmen are pretty much exactly the same as Empire crossbowmen as well. The difference is that they have that special rule called mercenaries, but you can also take pavises for these guys as well, which is basically a giant shield that covers the torso of the fighter. It gives you bonuses against missile attacks, so if you want a little bit longer lasting crossbowmen, you can also do this as well. It should also be noted you can also upgrade your crossbowmen to carry guns for handgunners, and we'll talk about that more when we get to the army list rules. Then you have your cell swords, which are basically your bread and butter mercenaries. These guys are usually good as using as chaff, whereas close combat guys, they pretty much have the same stats as Imperial State troops, except that you can upgrade them to veterans, and we'll talk about a little bit more when we get to their army lists. But basically you're paying for an additional weapon skill as plus additional initiative as well. But we'll talk about those when we get to the army list later on. Now, another neat thing we have are called duelists. Is another group that we have here. These guys are skirmishers, which are nice. They have 4 weapon skill, and they're pretty much like Empire swordsmen is basically what they're like, except they come with a skirmisher special rule. And you guys can also be equipped with ranged weapons, which is really nice because you could use them as kind of like blockers to protect your units and your flanks. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the army list. Then we have freelancers, which are basically human cavalry. These guys are also like pretty much like Empire Knights for the most part. We have the condottieri, which is basically the captain, which is like a unit champion for these guys. So these are kind of like your what you call it, your mercenary version of knights. So you have those guys. And you have stradoites. With these guys are basically like your fast cav guys. These guys have fast cavalry. They can be also equipped with missile weapons as well. So once again, you're scouting chaff for these guys as well. Mediocre stats, all things considered. Now we have another unit called gladiators. These guys are also kind of cool as well. So let's talk about these guys. These guys have weapon skill 4, movement 4, 3 ballistic skill, 4 strength, 3 toughness, 1 wound, 4 initiative, 2 attacks, 8 leadership. And then we have the Pit King, which is the next guy ranking up. These guys have the mercenaries as well as a skirmisher's ability, and obviously they are immune to fear because, well, they're gladiators. And of course you have this special called net fighters. When it is in their turn to attack, roll a d6 for each enemy armed with nets. On a 2-up, 1 enemy model in base contact is ensnared and suffers -1 attack, both rider and mount, for the remainder of the close combat phase. So there you go. So that's the nice thing about this. Now you see it says -1 attack. It doesn't say anything up to a minimum of 1 attack, which I'm assuming is that even if your opponent only has 1 attack, they don't get to attack you because they're entangled with the nets. This is a really good tar pit unit as well, especially with that strength 4. We'll talk about some of the things you can do to upgrade your gladiators when we get to the army lists. So continuing on, we have our mercenary dwarves. These are pretty much just basic dwarves that you get from dwarven infantry. So these guys have the relentless skills as well as the resolute special abilities. So we have those attached to those guys, just like in the 9th edition rules. We also have mercenary elves. Exactly the same kind of loadout with these guys as well. At the same time, we have to have the Melvin Grace ability because, you know, they kind of nerfed elves in this edition by taking away always strike first, and they gave him dodge 6 up, which I guess is cool, but you know, I still prefer to have always strike first if I was lead elves. After that, we have another unit called Norse Marauders. These guys are pretty much like your average Marauders from the Chaos Warbands, except a little bit different though. They have a special attachment called the Berserker Gong. It says whenever a unit of Norse makes a successful charge, including pursuit and overrun, the unit is subject to frenzy in the following first round of close combat. So there are just a little bit better, but you know, not as much. And we'll talk a little bit more about why that is the case when we get to the iron list. Now we have, of course, halflings. Halflings make another appearance again. So once again, these guys have movement 4, weapon skill 2, 4 ballistic skill, 2 strength and 2 toughness, 1 wound, 5 initiative, 1 attack, 8 leadership. They have the mercenary special rule as well as short and nimble. It says enemies attacking models with this rule suffer -1 hit in close combat. So you might be wondering why you might take halflings. Halflings you're taking because of that 4 ballistic skill. They're really good at shooting bows, and they're really good at war machine hunting, that kind of thing. When we go over the Regiments of Renown book, we'll do that in another video. We'll actually talk about one of the Units of Renown that these guys are actually part of, and that makes them much better. And then we have the Halfling Hot Pot. The Halfling Hot Pot comes back again. We saw this last time, I think in the 4th edition of Warhammer Fantasy with the Empire. As you can see, it's a thrower. You got the short and nimble. They got the Hot Pot. The Hot Pot has a 6-up, 3-up missile attack. It ignores armor saves, causes multiple wounds D3, 36-inch range. So it's kind of like a Doom Diver Catapult, except you can't really you know, zoom in on your enemies, but that part's kind of cool. And now we have mercenary orcs. Yes, you can take orcs in an army of dogs of war. As you can see, they got pretty much general stats for orcs. They have mercenary as well as strength -1. They also have orc animosity. As you can see, you have the animosity table, which they allow us to take. So because of that, it's kind of nice. It kind of says, in leads with this rule, must roll d6 and consult the chart below the start of the turn unless they are already in combat, fleeing, or have less than 5 models. So they always have the roll on this as well. Then you got Hobgoblin Wolf Riders. These guys are back. As you can see, they got movement 4, weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 3, strength 3, toughness 3, 1 wound, 2 initiative, 1 attack, 6 leadership. They have giant wolves that they ride. They're fast cavalry, and they also have Hobgoblin animosity as well. So you can see we have the results. We'll get a better view from further back. The unit immediately takes a panic test. Cut them good. The unit may act normally this turn, and 6 bloody murder. The unit suffers D3 wounds distributed as from shooting attacks. Afterwards, they gain +1 to the hit rolls for this turn only, and may be used normally again. So as you can see here, we have the beginnings of the Hobgoblins coming back once again in this unit as well. Then we have Mercenary Ogres, of course. They got Ogre Charge, which of course got nerfed in this edition, but they pretty much have the same kind of stats, so that part's kind of nice. And we have Ogre Man-Eaters. Once again, these guys are also back on the list as well. As you can see, Ogre Charge got nerfed a little bit, but they automatically come with Stubborn, which is kind of nice. At the same time, we also have the Been There, Done That rule, and they may only pick one because of balance. So we have Armor Piercing, Devastating Charge, Killing Blow, Hatred, multiple wounds, parry, poison attacks, as well as strength bonuses. Notice they took away their ability to Vanguard, as well as their ability to Scout, as well as to do anything else that made Man-Eaters really, really cool in earlier editions. So I will have a negative about that. That's one thing I don't like about this rulebook. And continuing on, so once again, we now have some more artillery pieces. We have Bolt Thrower, your Ballista, which are basically your typical Bolt Thrower. And then we also have your Scorpions, which are basically smaller Bolt Throwers. They does not so much strength, and they also have the Armor Piercing 1. So because of that, a unit of multiple Scorpions must deploy and stay within 1 HE of each other at all times. So that is another thing you gotta worry about too. These guys have to all stick together in one battery, while Ballista, of course, can be set up anywhere they need to. And then, of course, we have artillery, we have our cannons, so we have your typical great cannon. Unfortunately, the cannon got nerfed in the 9th edition because, you know, balance, I guess. So because of that, people are, you know, so cannons are not as effective as they used to be because of the fact that they kind of, you got the scouter the bounce because, you know, people can't figure out that you needed leapfrog units across the terrain and use terrain to protect you from cannon fire, because apparently that's a skill that no one really understands how to use for the ones who complained about it all the time. So that's the reason why they had nerfed cannons so bad. Then we have the Onauger, which is a stone thrower. So we have that as well. And we also have the Rebolts, which are basically kind of like Hellblaster volley guns, except they only get artillery die plus 1d6. These make a comeback again. I believe they were from the older editions of Warhammer Fantasy battles, so these are back again. But don't worry though, they will be nerfed, I'm sure, eventually. And then of course we have Giants, and then of course we have the Giants with their special attacks as well. So that part's kind of nice. And of course we've got our monsters. We have our Pegasi, which we can use for some of our characters as well. We also have Griffins on this one, which is also kind of cool too. The Griffin, I believe, can only be ridden by a mercenary general, I believe. And so that's one of the monsters they can take that the Prince can't take. So with these units over with now, we're going to go next to our special characters. Alright, so let's talk about the special characters. We have Borgio the Besieger, Merchant Prince Amirigliano. This was actually, I believe this was the original special character for the Dogs of War when they came out for 4th edition, I believe. Let's talk about him real quick. So Borgio, he's got 4 movement, 6 weapon skill, 5 ballistic skill, 4 strength and toughness, 3 wounds, 5 initiative, 4 attacks, 9 leadership. Pretty decent for a human being. He's also mounted on a bartered warhorse. He's also got the best money can buy rule because he is a merchant prince as well. At the same time, he's got a couple of rules to help him out. We have difficult to slay. If Borgio is reduced to 0 wounds, roll a d6. On a 1 through 3, he is removed as a casualty as normal, and on a 4+, he stands back up again with a single wound remaining. Note that this ability cannot be used against attacks that kill the model outright. So then we have Master of Siegecraft. If Borgio is your general, you may take 1 more duplicate War Machine unit than normal at the points value played. And of course, we have our magic items, the Mace of Might. It says if Borgio rolls a 6 to hit with his weapon, this hit will be resolved at strength 10. This one got kind of nerfed a little bit because I remember correctly, I believe it caused multiple wounds in earlier editions of the game. And then we have the Armor of Brazen Bronze. It says full plate armor. The Armor of Brazen Bronze gives him a 5 ward save. And then we have the Monstrous Mask Helm. It's a 6 armor save. It says the wearer of the Monstrous Mask gains the Fear special rule. So pretty mediocre stats, all things considered, but you know, special characters are just kind of there just for lulls, not really there for, you know, anything tactical or strategic. Then we have Lucrezia Belladonna, the Merchant Princess of Pavona. She's supposed to be based off of the Borgia's daughter, I believe. Lucrezia Borgia, I think is her name is. So there's another original character that was from the original rule books as well. So let's talk about her real fast. So she's got movement 4, weapon skill 4, 3 ballistic skill, strength, toughness, wounds, 4 initiative, 1 attack, 8 leadership. She is riding a warhorse. Now the reason why you take this character is because yes, she is a merchant prince, but she's also level 4 wizard with the uses spells from the Lord of Shadow or the Lord of Death. So that's where her character kind of shines for the most part. So of course she has the best that money can buy special rule attached to her, and then she has the special rule Stunning Beauty. Any friendly human unit within 8 inches of Lucrezia will rally automatically during your compulsory movement phase, being ashamed to be seen running away from the enemy before such a beautiful and commanding lady. They have Lucrezia's Kiss, which is her magic weapon, I believe. It says, at the start of the battle, 1 character army may be given the poison attack special rule due to the potency of the poison in her lipstick. Then we have poisonous items, and this is where her character really shines, this poison thing. She has the Phial of Poison. Nominate D3 enemy characters at the beginning of the battle. Roll a D6 for each. On a roll of 4 up means that the character has been poisoned and starts the battle with 1 less wound than normal, with no saves allowed. This has no effect against models of the immunity, poison attacks, or demonic special rules, so that's one of the things she can do. They have the Poison Stiletto, additional hand weapon. The dagger gives Lucrezia the poison attack special rule, and the Potion of Pavona. At the beginning of the battle, Lucrezia may give the potion to any friendly character or take it herself. Roll a d6 on a 2+. Choose that number of the chosen model's characteristics to improve by +1. For example, if you roll a 4, you may choose to improve the model's weapon skill, toughness, wounds, and initiative by 1. You cannot apply this bonus to a model's leadership and cannot increase a characteristics more than 1. If you roll a 1, the model loses a wound. If this kills the model, then it counts as a casualty for all purposes. So because of that, that's one of the cool things about her character, were these potions that she can be able to give for people. Then we have Lorenzo Lupo, Merchant Prince of Lucchini. He's another throwback character as well. He's got 6 weapon skill, 5 ballistic skill, 4 strength and toughness, 3 wounds, 6 initiative, 4 attacks, 9 leadership. He's an infantryman, also Merchant Prince, also has the best money you can buy special rule. He fights on foot, so he adds +1 to their combat resolution bonus because he fights on foot the entire time. Basically, the character is supposed to be like a guy who wants to be like the ancient Romans, is basically what he's like. We have the Mighty Athlete ability. It says roll a d6 at the start of the battle, determine which pursuit he has been following prior to joining the army. He's get +1 toughness, +1 attack, or +1 strength. Very, very useful all around. We have the Sword of Lucan, which attacks made with the Sword of Lucan have the Ignores Armor Save special rule. The Shield of the Myrmidia. All enemy models in close combat with Lorenzo lose 1 attack each. So once again, it doesn't say to a minimum of 1. So I'm assuming that anybody basically is in basic contact with him, even if it's a normal fighter, they don't get any attacks. And then we have the Ring of Lucina. Balance spell level 3, the Ring of Lucina causes an augment spell which affects all units within 12 inches. If successfully cast, all fleeing troops will rally automatically. Yeah, Lorenzo Lupo was always considered the most useful of the special characters because of these buffs that he gives. So that's one of the reasons why his character was so interesting. Then we have Marco Colombo. This guy is a Merchant Prince of Trentino. He's supposed to be based off of like Christopher Columbus, is basically supposed to be modeled after. He's got movement 4, 6 weapon skill, ballistic skill, 4 strength and toughness, 3 wounds, 6 initiative, 4 attacks, 9 leadership. Once again, he's got the Merchant Prince, the best money he can buy. He's also got Crossbow Hunter. Marco ignores the move or fire special rule with his crossbow, as well as Navigator's Telescope. Marco has a Sniper special rule. In addition, all enemy units within line sight of 24 inches to Marco must reveal any hidden models that may contain. So this is what this guy is. He's more like the range combat special character as he is. He's got a Fort Ward save from the Gem of Lustria. He's got the Gourd of Lustrian wine. When used only, Marco may drink the wine at the start of any close combat phase, and it lasts till the start of the enemy's next player's turn. While in effect, the Gourd of Lustrian wine grants D3 strength, so because they can go up to strength 7, very, very useful. And the Scroll of Araby. When used only, the Scroll of Araby can be used at the start of any player's turn. Until the start of your next turn, Marco, any unit he is with, gains the Magic Resistance 3 special rule. Marco may use this item despite not being a wizard. So once again, another very useful character that came out in later editions of Warhammer Fantasy. They have Leonardo da Miragliano. This is the guy who basically invented the steam tanks. He's like Leonardo da Vinci. So once again, let's talk about him. So he's got movement 4, 2 weapon skill, 3 ballistic skill, 3 strength and toughness, 2 wounds, 2 initiative, 1 attack, 7 leadership. Not all that great, but the reason why I bring in this character is because of all the other stuff that he brings for your army. He's very much a support character. So you have Genius. You may set Leonardo's formidable intellect to each of the following problems: artillery accuracy, As long as Leonardo is within 3 inches of one war machine, the war machine may reroll 1 artillery dice, scatter dice, or to hit roll per turn. Crossbow accuracy. As long as Leonardo is with a unit armed with crossbows, the unit may reroll all failed rolls of 1 to hit in the shooting phase. And battle strategy. 1 core unit in the army gains the ambusher special rule. Then of course he has his scientific items, or basically magical items. You have the Sphere of Alchemy. One use only. The sphere has the following profile: 6-inch range, 3 missile, armor piercing 2, quick to fire. If Leonardo hits, use a small template to determine the blast area. If Leonardo misses target, the orb is assumed to have exploded prematurely, fallen in the mud, or bounced off someone's helmet. Has no effect. So this is where he has his weapons that he can use. We have the Prism of Power, which may be used in any of your opponent's magic phases. After determining the winds of magic and channeling rolls for that turn, roll a d6. On a 4+, Leonardo may remove 1 power dice from the opponent's pool, and Compass of Meteoric Silver. At the start of the battle, your opponent must tell which of other units contain the highest number of magic items. So once again, kind of like a really big support character. Then we have Midas the Mean, Notorious Paymaster. So this is a Paymaster special character. So in case you want to take a normal Paymaster, you could take this character instead. And this guy is actually quite useful. So let's go and talk about that real quick. So we have Midas the Mean. He's got 4 movement, 5 weapon and ballistic skill, 4 strength and toughness, 2 wounds, 5 initiative, 3 attacks, 8 leadership. So right off the bat, kind of a marked improvement. Then we have the Moneylender, Sheik Yadush. He's got 2 weapon skill, ballistic skill, 3 strength, 2 initiative, 1 attack, 7 leadership. We have the Pay Cart as well, which is a actual chariot that actually travels in the unit, which basically has money chests on it as well. Now, if Midas is in your army, he will be the role of Paymaster. No other Paymaster may be included. The Pay Cart basically inflicts D3 impact hits. The Pay Chest also increases the radius of Midas's hold your ground special by 6 inches. The Pay Cart acts as a separate unit from the Midas and his bodyguards on the battlefield. We have Midas's bodyguards, so once again, that bodyguard unit we talked about earlier must be parted by his bodyguard, may not leave this unit as well. And the reason why that's important, because it has some further effects here on the table right next to it. So let's talk about that real quick. So we have Sheik Yadush, the money lender. Sheik Yadush rides on the Pay Cart rather than being deployed next to Midas. He otherwise follows the rules for regular money lenders, except that the leadership modifier is increased to D3 rather than +1. So very, very useful there as well. Now, the reason why you might want to take Midas the Mean is because of this treasure map. So let's talk about this real quick. It says, at the start of each of your turns, roll a d6 and consult the table below to see what effect the promises of Midas treasure map has. So each of your turns. 1 through 2, a bonus for all my loyal and trusty henchmen. Until the start of your next turn, Midas's bodyguards get +1 to hit in close combat. 3 to 4, the Pay Chest is safe with me, lads. Until the start of your next turn, all friendly units within 12 inches of Midas are stubborn, so that's a really useful ability. And 5 to 6, if you win the battle, all mercenaries will receive a bonus. Until the start of your next turn, all friendly units within 12 inches of Midas add +1 to their combat resolution. So every single turn, you have nothing but good things happening for your army. So that's one of the reasons why I want to take Midas the Mean. And then, of course, you have the Crest of Midas. Midas and all models in the same unit gain the magical attack special rule. In addition, enemy models must reroll successful ward saves caused by close combat attacks from this unit. So that's the reason why I want to take this guy. He actually has quite a bit of buffs that he adds to an army. Then we have Leopold the Black. Also Leopold the Bloody, Leopold the Butcher, Leopold the Liar, Leopold the Turncoat, Leopold the Thrice Cursed, and Coinbot Prince, etc. This guy was actually a special character from the Horde of Tamarkand, from Forge World, if I remember correctly. So let's talk about this guy real quick. This character basically sold his soul, is what he did to a demonic entity. So Leopold the Black's got 4 movements, 6 weapon skill, 5 ballistic skill, 4 strength and toughness, 3 wounds, 5 initiative, 4 attacks, 9 leadership, rides a barded warhorse, and he has the Blessing of Laith. So Leopold has a ward save of 3 up, but should he fail his save, then from Leopold's next turn onward, the magic is disrupted, the save no longer applies, and Leopold suffers a -1 penalty to his toughness and leadership characteristics. We also have Murderous Charge. Leopold and Aeneas join gains a devastating charge special rule, and then we have Gorprow, his sword, which is a massive double-handed sword. It's basically all attacks made with the Gorprow that multiple wounds D3 and always strikes first special rules. So kind of an important kit out for this guy, pretty deadly. Then we have Gazak Khan, the Terror of the East. This is basically the Hobgoblin general. This guy is also a throwback from earlier editions of the game as well. 7 weapon skill, 4 movement, 6 ballistic skill, 4 strength and toughness, 3 wounds, 6 initiative, 4 attacks, 9 leadership. He wears Wargon, his giant wolf. We have his special rule, War Cry of the Steppes. Any unit that Gazak Khan declares a charge against can only choose hold as a charge reaction. This does not affect units that have the immunity special rule. If I remember correctly, I believe last time they had to take terror checks. I think is how it worked in the earlier editions. Then we have Quill Animosity. Basically says any Hobgoblin within 6 inches of Gazak may re-roll their initial d6 for treachery or Hobgoblin animosity tests. In addition, if Gazak Khan is your army's general, units of Hobgoblins will count as core units. You have a weapon, the Red Scimitar, which basically gives them armor piercing 3 and multiple wounds D3. And Demon Head Helmet, a 6+ armor save. As soon as Gazak suffers his first wound in battle, the Demon in the Helmet awakens and gives Gazak the ward save 4 up, and magic resistance 1 special rules for the remainder of the battle. In addition, his strength is doubled when fighting against models or you which cause the wound as well. And that pretty much makes Gazak Khan as well. So with that being said, we're going to now move on to quirks of character as well as magical items. Alright, so let's go and talk about Quirks of Character real quick. So Quirks of Character was a unique game mechanic that was unique specifically to the Dogs of War. This is a way that you could actually customize your characters for your army as well. So let's go and talk about that real quick. It says, mercenary generals frequently have some dark secret or quirk in their character, which explains why they became great generals. Characters able to spend points on Quirks of Character as detailed in the army list. Note that you may not take multiples of the same quirk on the same character, but multiple characters may have the same quirk. So let's go ahead and talk about those real quick. So we have a bunch of different skills these guys have. We have Grizzled Warrior, which costs 35 points. All successful to wound rolls against this character must be re-rolled, which is really nice. We have Stoic, also costs 35 points. A model and any unit he joins gets a Stubborn special rule. Charismatic Leader for 25 points. General only. The model's inspiring presence range is increased by 6 inches. We also have Fearless for 20 points. The model any unit joins gains the immunity to psychology rule. We also have Rich and Greedy for 20 points. Mercenary General only. All friendly models using the Paymaster's Hold Your Ground ability may choose to re-roll just one of the dice when making a break or panic tests. So this part is actually kind of nice. We also have Eagle Eye, which gives the character a Sniper special rule for 20 points. Berserker 15 gives you Frenzy. We have Blood Feud. The character has a Hatred special rule for 15 points. Lethal Strike for 15. The model gains a Killing Blow special rule. We have Ranger for 15 points. Model is on foot only. The model gains a Scout special rule. We have Veteran. The character gains +1 weapon skill for 10 points. Cunning for 10 points. The character may reroll 1 fail to hit roll each close combat phase. Ambusher for 10 points. The character allows 1 core unit except Freelancers to gain the Ambusher special rule. So once again, Freelancers can't ambush, which are your knights, so you know, kind of a nerf. Poisoner for 10 points. The model gains the Poison Attack special rule, and Vanguard. The model any unit joins gains the Vanguard special rule for 10 points as well. So there you go. Those are some of the quirks of characters you can use to kind of, to make your character a little bit different. So I've seen quirks of character. They're basically called skills, is what they were called from earlier editions of the game. For example, the Vanguard rule here, you actually had a rule called Forward March, which basically meant that every single infantry unit within 12 inches of your character can make a 6-inch Vanguard move forward automatically, which was really, really useful because in that edition, you could take handgunners in your Dogs of War army. But we'll talk about that when we get to the army list here in a little bit. So that was really, really useful. So if you have a lot of handgunners in your army, you can actually move forward 6 inches. That way you can start blasting at your enemy top of turn number 1 if you wanted to, which is actually kind of cool. Anyway, so moving on. So now we have Spoils of War. These are magical items from the Dogs of War. A lot of these weapons are actually throwbacks from earlier editions of the game. So let's go and talk about that real quick. So we have Hershio's club, which costs you 60 points. It's basically like Hercules. It says, requires 2 hands. The wielder adds this club, add +1 to his strength and attack to the start of each close combat phase, up to a maximum of 3+ for as long as it remains in combat. We have the Cathaean Dragon Sword for 50 points. Gives the wielder +1 weapon skill, +1 initiative, as well as Killing Blow and armor piercing and flaming attacks. We have Domingo's Arbalist. Domingo's Arbalist costs 45 points. It is a crossbow. It's got 36-inch range, strength 5, ignores armor saves, move or fire, multiple wounds D3. Hits are reserved using the rules for bolt throwers. So this would be a really nice one to use, especially if you decide to pair it up with the Eagle Eye special rule for your character, making them a sniper. So that's a nice little combination you can use right there. Then we have the Pike of Remus, which is a 30-point weapon. It's a pike. The weapon inflicts D3 strength 5 impact hits when the wielder is charged. So you have to be charged. You can't be doing the charging. In addition, it has the Heroic Killing Blow special rule for cavalry and monstrous cavalry. This weapon may be taken by a mercenary general or captain on foot only, despite normally being allowed to take pikes. So that's what we have on that one as well. We have the Helm of Myrmidia, which is cost you 45 points, 6 up armor save. Enemies attacking the warrior at close combat suffers -1 to hit and lose 1 attack, down to a minimum of 1. In addition, the warrior gains the Hatred Undead special rule. So that one would have been cool, but you know, they have to have at least 1. So a little expensive for what it does. Then we have Membrinio's Golden Armor for 20 points. It's full plate armor. The wearer gains immediate killing blow, multiple wounds. However, suffers -2 to their initiative and -1 penalty for dangerous terrain tests. So very, very dependent. The Banner of Vini for 45 points. All models as unit carry this banner gains a devastating charge special rule. The Staff of Fickle Fortune, which is probably one of the most interesting magic items on here. 35 points. At the beginning of each of your magic phases, roll a d6. On a roll of 1, the bearer suffers -d3 to his casting rolls, except roll for each spell for the remainder of the turn. On a roll of 2, nothing happens. On a 3+, however, the wizard gains +d3 to all of his casting attempts. Roll for each spell for the remainder of the turn. This one is actually quite useful for lower level wizards, especially if they're like a level 2 wizard. You could basically bump it up to a 4+ when it comes to their casting value, so it's really, really useful to use. You could also, of course, put it on a Lord level wizard as well, which would be really nice. Using this with Lord of Shadows, for example, is very, very useful because Lord of Shadows is very, very difficult to get off. Or you could also use this very well to great effect with Lord of Light. Lord of Light actually really benefits from this as well because this kind of boosts. Lord of Light is statistically speaking the easiest lore to cast from, so this will really help you make sure you can push that over the edge, which is kind of nice. Then we have the Eagle Bannered for 25 points. As its enemies can never get the outflumber, flank, or rear combat resolution bonuses because the unit's carrying this banner, so that part's kind of nice. The Guido's Lucky Coin for 5 points. When used only once per game, the model may reroll 1 dice when rolling to hit, to wound, or when taking armor and ward saves. Kind of a good magic items. You may think, oh really, it's only one use item once per game, but it's only costing you 5 points. If you got 5 points to spare, this could really help you out, especially when taking armor or more importantly, ward saves. Very, very important and very, very nicely priced, I might add, for that magical item. And then we have Justinian's Pay Chest for 35 points. Paymaster with the Pay Chest only. The Paymaster in any unit they are with always rolls 3d6 when taking psychology break tests and discards the highest result. Pretty important to have if you're just going to go with the general Paymaster. There is one thing that's missing on here. I wish they would have had it, which is the Banner of Miragliano. This one allowed you to reroll 1s to hit from missile as well as close combat attacks. But I guess they took that away because, you know, the balance bandwagon got involved. But anyway, that's where we have it. So now we have the magic items done. Now we're going to move on to the Dogs of War army list. Right, so let's go and talk about the Dogs of War army list. But before we go any further, I want to draw your attention to this photo. And the reason why I want to draw your attention to this photo is because this photo is actually kind of neat because it kind of shows you some of the classic Dogs of War units that used to exist back in the day. Actually, this is when I was introduced to them, when they came out for 4th edition. So, for example, we have the Alicante Brotherhood, for example. That's a regiment of renown. We have the Leopard Company, which is another unit of pikemen, which was also a regiment of renown. The Besiegers was another one. Heavy armored crossbowmen with pavises. Long drawn Slayer Pirates. Yes, I said that correctly. Slayer Pirates. These were Slayers that actually used pistols. We have Lucretia Belladonna right there. We have Mercenary General there. We have the Arnsal. Arnsal was a high elf prince that rode a dragon that you could actually take for Regiment Renown as well. We have the Bearmen of Ursula as well. We also have the Marksmen of Miragliano, which are like really high ballistic skill crosswomen. We have Bonzino's Galloper guns. These are actually fast cav cannons, although of course the cannon rules have been nerfed in 9th edition, but you know, still kind of cool. And then we have the Flying Birdmen of Catraza. These guys were flying fast cav that could actually have ambusher rules, basically, and they fired at crossbows. So these are some of the original Dogs of War units that were really, really popular back in the day. And these guys were all made out of pewter, just to give you guys an idea about how old these miniatures were as well. So that's actually kind of cool. But unfortunately, this book does not contain the Regiment of Renown. The Regiments of Renown are actually a supplement to the 9th edition, but we'll do another video on those guys specifically later on down the line. So let's go and talk about the army list real quick. So typical army list rules as applies. So let's go and talk about our lords real fast. So Borgio, the Besieger, costs 200 points. Like I said, he's kind of pricey for what he does, but then again, that's also the case for all special characters. Lucrezia Bonadonna is 290 points, so that part's kind of nice for her. Lorenzo Lupo is 210 points. It could be argued that Lorenzo Lupo is much a better choice than Borgio Besieger. Then we have Marco Colombo. He's also cost 190 points. Very, very useful character here. He pretty much does everything pretty much well. He can shoot, he can fight, you know, he can help out, so that's one of the reasons why I want to use him. Gazak Khan is really good to use, especially if you want to take Hobgoblin Wolf Riders, and that's because back in the day, you actually saw armies of actual Hobgoblin Wolf Riders just, you know, back in the day as well, and Gazak Khan was their general. They have Leopold the Black, of course. He's got his 3-up ward save, which is kind of nice because he's actually got heavy armor and bardings. He's got pretty good armor save, pretty good ward save as well. The problem is that the Blessings of Leith makes it really, really rule dependent for the most part. So that's the thing you got to worry about for him. Uncommon tactic you could probably use this guy is actually throw him into your infantry unit. So that way you get some bonuses from rank bonuses and things to kind of help him out. So that's kind of cool as well. So let's talk about our Merchant Prince. He costs 80 points, or she costs 80 points, I should say. Hand weapon, light armor, best money can buy special rule as well. They can take lances, additional hand weapons or great weapons, pistols or brace of pistols or crossbow, medium heavy or full plate armor, shield. They can ride war horses or pegasuses, and may take quirks of character or magic items up to, oh, never mind. So the Merchant Prince has been nerfed a little bit. Originally, Merchant Princes could take 125 points worth of magic items or quirks of character, but it looks like they nutted them down to 100. Oh man, the balance bandwagon strikes again. Yeah, so you guys know how I feel about when people use the word balance for arguments. So anyways, moving on. So we have a Mercenary General. This guy costs 90 points. Lance, great additional weapon, great weapon, pole arms, brace of pistols, bow, crossbow, handguns, medium heavy, full plate armor, takes a shield. This character can also ride the Pegasus, which is actually kind of nice as well. A Griffin for 150 points, and may take quirk of character, magic items up to 100 points. So that's kind of sad. You took the Merchant Prince for two reasons. You took him because the best the money could buy roll plus that 25 extra points, but I guess the balance bandwagon strikes again. So now we have our Hireling Wizard Lord. Once again, they can be able to put up to level 4. They can ride a War Horse, the Pegasus, may take them total magic items to 100 points. 165 points. They're pretty much on par with an Empire Battle Wizard Lord, for example. And of course, we have our War Horses or Pegasuses and our Griffins for our Pegasi, rather, I guess, and Griffins for our character mounts. And then for our heroes, we have Leonardo da Miragliano. We talked about him earlier. He costs 75 points, which is not bad considering all the buffs he actually gives your army. It's actually a pretty fair point. Midas the Meat also costs 210 points as well. And this guy is a little bit more than normal just because his bodyguard would have magic items. Plus they get buffs from Sheikh Yadush as well as from their treasure maps. So you can kind of understand why he's the same way that he is. But at the same time though, he also comes with full plate armor and a shield. So he already comes with a 3-up armor save. So that kind of tells you a little bit more about him. So let's talk about our Mercenary Captains real quick. These guys cost 50 points. They have a whole bevy of things they can take as well. They make really useful War Machine Hunters because they can ride Pegasi. At the same time, they can take 50 points of magic items or quirks of characters. These guys, the Captain character is not as useful as it is in the Empire, for example, because the Empire you can make into a BSB, Battle Standard Bearer, but these guys, not so much. Now you have your Hireling Wizard. They cost 65 points. They can ride a War Horse, the Barding, magical items at 50 points. Pretty much on par with the normal Battle Wizard from the Empire as well. The Paymaster costs 45. This is the guy you must include. You can take a pay chest for additional 30 points as well. And it says, if he wishes, if he does know, he may carry up to other magic items up to 25 points. If the Paymaster takes a pay chest, he may not take a mount. So you got to keep that in mind as well. So as you can see, he's got a whole bevy of things that he can take with him, up to full plate armor. Can ride a War Horse, unless of course he takes the pay chest. The Moneylender upgrade only costs 15 points extra, and they can take a magic items up to 50 points as well. So that part's kind of nice. And then we got our Assassins, which are pretty cool. These guys cost 90 points. They also have their bevy of things they can take as well as 50 points. So if you're looking for a character killer, these guys are perfect for that. Now, we also have our Dwarf Mercenary Captains. These guys cost 65 points. We saw these guys' stats earlier. Crossbow, pistol, shields, heavy armor, full plate armor, may take quirks or magic items up to 50 points. We have Elf Mercenary Captains as well as for 65 points with their bevy of things that they can take. We also have our Orc Mercenary Captains. Yes, these guys are coming with those. They can take medium armor, and as well as take a great weapon or hand weapon as well. We have our Urgler Mercenary Captains as well, which are actually kind of nice. We also have their bevy of things that they can take as well for 130 points. And Hobgoblin Mercenary Captains cost 60. And of course, we have all their various gear that they can take too. Now, let's talk about our core units real quick. So we have Pikemen. They cost 6 points apiece. Full command, 30 points. Can take a magic standard, which is nice about these guys, for 25 points. This was the sad part, because the Banner Miragliano actually used to cost 25 points, and this is what you would put it in. You'd usually put it in a unit of pikemen. That's what you usually do in some cases. And they could take medium armor for additional point as well. So these guys can come up with a 5-up armor save, which is actually kind of nice. Now, crossbowmen. So, like I said before, you could originally used to be able to take handgunners in a Dog of War army. They would cost 8 points apiece. You can see you get your full command for 30 points. You can take a magic standard. Another thing that people used to do back in the day also was put the Banner Miragliano on these guys as well, but we can't do that, I guess. These guys can take light armor for half a point apiece, and the unit may take pavices, there we go, for 1 point apiece to get additional save against range attacks. And the interior unit may replace their crossbow with handguns for free. However, because the balanced bandwagon will always strike from the shadows, it says your army may not contain any more units armed with handguns than crossbows, and that's a big boo on this one. The reason why is because you used to be able to take as many handgunner units as you wanted to back in the day. In fact, that's why a lot of guys used to do the whole pike and gun shot type of builds with these guys, because you used to be able to take handgunners. But that is no more the case anymore, so that's kind of sad as well. So, oh well, the balance bandwagon. So now we have our cell swords. These guys cost 3 points apiece. Very, very easy throwawayable chaff. They can come with one of the units. They can take spears, additional hand weapons, flails, great weapons, and pole arms. They can take javelins or bows. They can take shields. They can take light or medium armor. And of course, you can upgrade the veteran cell swords. They may wear heavy armor. They may take a magic item to 25 points. However, you can't have more units of veteran cell swords than normal cell swords. So cell swords are nice because they kind of cost a point of it. They cost the same amount as a goblin does, but much more useful than goblins in that situation, because you can equip them with some pretty devastating things. These are good, really good flankers is basically what they really use for. So like, for example, if your main line of pikemen get charged, for example, or crossbowmen, you just set some cell swords next to them on the flank and they can do a flank charge and really cause some pain to your opponent. So cell swords are quite useful. Duelists were also another popular choice from back in the day. These guys cost 4 points apiece as well. Just a little bit more than a natural goblin does, and that's because you're playing for the additional weapon skill. But like I said before, the nice thing about these guys is that they have skirmishers, and they can take pistols as well, or throwing weapons. These are good, really good blocking units. So a common thing what you would do back in the day, if you're playing Dogs of War, I'm going to show you a dirty trick that Dogs of War players used to use. So back in the day, you would have a big block of pikemen, and you would have two flanking units of handgunners, or crossbowmen now, since you can't take handgunners that many handgunner units. So you'd have these guys on the flank of your pikemen. And what you would do is that you would put units of duelists up in the front in front of your crossbowmen units, and then cell swords along the flank of your crossbowmen units as well. The idea was that if your opponent tried to charge your crossbowman unit, you would actually send your duelists up forward to buy them some time. And the reason why is so that way your crossbowmen can do a swift reform from lines, long, thin units, to actually call up into column formation, so that way they can get rank bonuses when they get charged. You then put cell swords into the flank of your enemies if your crossbowmen got charged, and that's pretty much how it worked. And you can really mop up that way. So these are the more useful units within a Dogs of War army. That's because I used to see people use this a great effect for their Dogs of War armies in earlier editions of Warhammer. Then we have our Freelancers, which are your knights. They cost 16 points a piece. They can take full heavy armor or full plate armor, or they could take medium armor only. It's up to you how you want to equip them. They can only take lances, though. That's the only part that's sad. You can't equip them with great weapons. And then we have Stratiots as well. Stratiots, rather. They cost 10 points a piece. These are your guys' not your scouting, but your chaff light cav. They can take bows, crossbows, or handguns, so that's also kind of neat as well. They can also take shields, light armor, or medium armor too, so that part's kind of nice. So let's talk about your special units. So the Paymaster's Bodyguard. These guys are quite important. So let's go ahead and talk about them real quick. So they come 11 points per model. They automatically come with a pole arm and heavy armor. So they come with a 5-up armor save. You can upgrade these guys to full plate armor for a 4-up armor save, plus they can take 50 points for their magic standard. So this is a unit you actually want to spend quite a bit of points on, because your Paymaster would go in here, and your Paymaster is very, very important. So this would be a really good flanking unit to protect your main flank with your Paymaster inside of it, so you would actually spend quite a bit on these guys. Your Gladiators cost 11 points per model as well. They can replace their shields with additional hand weapons, which is free, or replace their shields with nets and spears for 1 point per miniature, or javelins. Most cases you're going to replace them with nets and spears, because you really want to use that net fighter ability against your enemies to really handicap them. These guys also make really good flank guarding units as well, because they have that skirmisher ability. They can also do the same job as duelists as well, but do a much better job at it. So that's another thing you can take in mind as well. Then we have our mercenary dwarves. These guys can take spears and great weapons. Oh yeah, dwarves with spears, imagine that. They can take crossbows, they can take shields, they can take medium or heavy armor for 7 points apiece. That is not bad for dwarf warriors. That's actually quite good. You could actually do some really good stuff with them. The only problem though is that, oh, never mind. They don't have that's right, they don't have the racial mistrust anymore. I take that back. There was a rule called racial mistrust back in the day where mercenaries of different races couldn't use the leadership characteristics of different units, but looks like they did with it. So we have our Norse Marauders for 7 points. So these guys take great weapons, they can take throwing axes, but if you'll notice, they only get light armors and shields. So a very, very fragile special unit. So keep that in mind when you take these guys. Halflings cost 3 points per unit as well. Now the main reason why I want to take these guys is because you want to give them skirmishing ability as well as scouts. These are perfect war machine hunters. These guys are really, really good at. So using them to hunt down war machines is what you want to do, or to pop up behind enemy lines. You also have mercenary orcs as well. They can take additional hand weapons, spears, or light armor, so that part's kind of nice as well. Hobgoblin Wolf Riders cost 11 points apiece. They can take spears, shields, and bows. They can have poison attacks. Really good chaff, really good war machine hunters as well. That's what really good where Hobgoblin Wolf Riders really shine. Mercenary Ogres, just a generally good unit to use anytime. They can take medium armor for a 5-up armor save, so they could also basically take replace their hand weapons with great weapons as well. So if you want to use some like Iron Gut type units, you could use these guys. The only problem is their Ogre charge is not as good. Because it got nerfed in the last edition. We have our Ballista, which costs 40 points there. Our Scorpions, which basically cost up to 3 of these guys. They cost 25 points apiece. Not bad, especially if you really want to cause some shooting with that. You have your Mercenary Elves. These guys are rare for 7 points apiece. They could take spears, longbows, or shields. They could also be upgraded to medium armor and can be incurred with skirmishers and scouts. So very, very good unit to use. Really good for mercenary hunting as well. And they're priced to match as well. You could actually create quite a bit of mercenary elves just popping up in your enemy's back ranks, causing problems. Ogre Man-Eaters, they're still pretty good at 44 points per model. Significantly cheaper than before, but they've been there, done that rules, though. It's been kind of nerfed, so they're kind of at a point dependent at this point, so you might want to take a look at that as well. And of course, we have an Onagger, which are a stone thrower for 85 points, our cannon for 85 points. It's understandable why the price is lower because they nerfed the cannon, so that makes sense. We have a Revolt for 85 points, so use those before that get used up. We got Halfling Hot Pots for 70 and a Giant for 175 points. And there you guys have it. That pretty much makes up the army lists for this one. Alright, so let's go and give our conclusion statements about the Dogs of War. So, with all said and done, this is actually a very excellent supplement for a couple reasons. One, it's kind of nice to see the Dogs of War coming back again after so long an absence in early and later editions of Warhammer Fantasy. So seeing these guys come back, really, really awesome. Like I said before, the last time I saw these guys was during the 4th edition of Warhammer Fantasy. Was the last time I really saw these guys being put to use, so that part's kind of nice. Plus the fact that this is free to download is really, really awesome as well. You can't beat the price because whether you want to admit it or not, free is always the best price for no matter what you're going for. So that part is really, really cool as well. So I really applaud Matthias Eliasson for creating this supplement to the 9th edition of Warhammer Fantasy. Now, granted, I do have my opinions about some of the nerfing taking place in the 9th edition. I've not shied away from that, my opinion on that one at all. But at the same time, though, considering that he's doing this entirely without support and he actually rolled all out for the most part, at the same time, he did an excellent job, and I think you should download it, give it a chance, and if you can, support him any way you can because the guy does amazing work. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's good to do for this one. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blog.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good to do for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.